I would like to begin today with the story of the British monarchy. The British monarchy is a constitutional monarchy where the ruling monarch, currently King Charles III, holds no real parliamentary power. It bears a largely ceremonial role, and its traditions date back to the 9th century when William the Conqueror was crowned king by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The monarchy has historically been seen as a unifying force in the United Kingdom. It still remains as one of the oldest and most enduring constitutional monarchies in the world, with a history spanning over 1,000 years. Throughout this millennium, the royal family has faced various challenges, ranging from personal scandals, political reform, and internal conflict, to revolutions, revolts, and 2 world wars. In particular, one of the chief missions of the royal family in the last reign of Queen Elizabeth II was to modernize the monarchy so that their practices align with the culture and values of post-World War society. Under this cause, the monarchy made diverse changes to their system throughout the span of 70 years. Queen Elizabeth embraced the new medium of television to make the monarchy more accessible to the public. Princess Diana took an informal and compassionate approach to her royal duties, bringing a more human and relatable aspect to the royal family, which aligned with the public's expectations of them. The younger generation of the royal family has continued this trend, involving themselves in charity work, opening their personal lives, and connecting with the public through social media and interviews. There were also attempts to adapt to the various social changes of the 21st century. For example, the succession to the Crown Act in 2013 removed the gender bias in the line of succession, allowing the eldest child, regardless of gender, to inherit the throne. The primary reason why modernization became such a pressing issue for the British monarchy following World War II was because of the constant pressure from the public, who criticized the royal family for being too detached, irrelevant, and drifting away from the people of the UK, who they should care about. Therefore, knowing that the endurability of their elite position entirely depended on their support from the people, the royal family had found ways to metamorphose themselves into a system compatible with the unique social and political values of the modern world. Imagine that you are part of the British royal family, and you are faced with this problem. You stand at crossroads, but the one thing that you are sure of is that your status cannot survive unless you decide to go with the flow. If you decide not to modernize, you will fall behind. The world will move on, and eventually, they might no longer need a monarchy in their place. What would you do? Would you keep your traditions, the core of your institutional identity, and let the world move on? Or would you adapt, thinking that, after all, Charles Darwin may have been right about survival of the fittest? There is no one answer to this question, since the debate continues to this day, and I know you're all thinking, why should we even care? The reason I bring up this story today is to highlight a lesson that we can all take away from the story of the British royal family, a group which I'm sure no one here has ever felt even a distant connection to. But the problem that they face, and will forever have to face as one of the most prestigious constitutional organizations in the world, is one that we also face as high school students and middle school students, contemplating what our future holds for us on a daily basis. It is a pivotal conflict between tradition and transition, the question of whether the value of preservation outweighs the value of modernization. Again, I know this sounds like a distant issue, so let me bring it closer to our context by telling you a story of my own. Once I was told to imagine who I would be at this point in my life, what I would be doing if school or any other form of education system binding my freedom did not exist. It was such a simple question of being, of my identity as a conscious individual, and yet after a few minutes of pondering, my answer was, I don't know. I simply could not imagine myself in a life where I was not Sieeun Rhee, an IBDP Year 1 student at Branksome, Malaysia. So that was when I realized that I had allowed my identity to be determined by external forces that do not reflect my true qualities as a person. I had never been so stuck on a question before, and I was genuinely shocked that I did not consider myself a significant individual outside of this very campus. What else could I be? This was the question on the table for all of you students to think about. Ask yourself the same question and think of what your answer would be. And if it is anything remotely similar to mine, I guarantee you we're standing in the same shoes. And basically, it is the same problem that the British monarchy has been challenged with throughout the last century. This leads to the message that I want to put through today. The world is constantly changing, and with it, we are changing too. We try so hard to appeal to society's needs by shaping ourselves into the human resources that are deemed necessary and valuable. And sadly enough, all of us are under the impression that such a metamorphosis is what defines us as successful in society. But reality speaks differently. The small box, which society has set down for us to cram ourselves into, leaves no room for individuality, creativity, and intrinsic human value. We are trying so hard to confine ourselves into this perfect shape, which for some reason, so many of us are convinced is the condition for success. This may lead you to wonder, then how do we adapt to this ever-changing world? And my answer is this. Yes, the world is constantly changing and it's not going to wait for us. Thus, the only way to preserve yourself is not to be the passive third party merely following the flow, but to be the leaders at the front lines of global change, shaping the world in the better way as we imagine it. We should be the ones who define our positions in the global community. We are what we decide what we want to be, and we should not let anyone or anything else make this decision for us. We should not limit ourselves to whatever has been defined as the successful path or the right career. In the end, it is up to you to decide what words should go in the blank above. It could be a changing, adapting, forming, preserving, protecting, or being, but I challenge you not to be the sad bird inside the cage, but to have the courage to expand and break free until you are satisfied with whatever shape you end up having. Do not limit yourselves or extinguish your identity to become what is expected of you. Because our role in the world is just beginning and we are boundless. Thank you.